Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. We're going to be getting started here soon. Sorry, we're just waiting to get a few more people on the call here on the Zoom, and I will let you know when we're ready to kick off. So just be patient for a few more minutes.
No problem. I'm not Andy Brenner. I'm not driving. I just am in a car.
That's good. We're all glad to hear that. Okay.
Good morning, Director.
How are you?
Good. I'm not Andy Brenner. I'm not driving, I swear.
Okay.
I am in the passenger side of a car in Wilmington. We're getting ready to do some stuff, but I'm completely safe.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I'm glad.
So everyone is on now and the webinar has begun. I apologize to everyone for the technical issues.
Yeah.
But Steve, you can go ahead and kick things off. Sorry.
All right.
Steve, you can go
Courtney,
ahead
are you on me?
Steve, yes, you can go ahead and kick things off.
Okay, great.
Go
Okay,
and
good.
start.
I didn't know you were talking to me.
I was
Sorry.
talking
Well,
to you.
good morning. Good morning, everybody. I want to thank everybody for getting on this webinar. The Ohio Chamber's happy to be hosting Business Academy this morning with the Ohio Department of Development. I'm grateful for Director Mahalik and the department for taking part in this webinar. You know, a lot of our member companies have suffered through COVID-19 for now almost 18 months. And the Ohio Department of Development has assistance in the form of grants. And I'm going to repeat that again, grants, not loans, that are available to small businesses in industries that were especially hard hit by the pandemic. So I'm going to let John and Director Mahalik talk more about those, but I want everybody to understand the key point at the beginning and all the way through this. This is grant money. This is not loan money. This is money that you do not have to pay back. This is a giant help for a lot of small businesses that are impacted by COVID-19. And I really want to thank Director Mahalik and John for everything they're doing. It's my honor to get a chance to introduce Director Lydia Mahalik of the Ohio Department of Development Services. You know, she's responsible for investing over $1 billion annually in our communities, businesses that help make Ohio a better place to work, live, and raise a family. Prior to her appointment by Governor DeWine, Director Mahalik served as the 55th mayor of the city of Findlay in Northwest Ohio. So she understands local government and everything that happens there. And Findlay has a thriving economy and a lot of great businesses. And I think she helped make that happen too. So she's a great person to have at the Department of Development. And I want to thank her and John Workman for doing this seminar for everybody. And I'm going to kick it over to Director Mahalik and again say thank you, Director, for everything you're doing to help Ohio businesses. And again, I want to remind people, this is grant money she's got available. You don't have to pay it back. So it's a big step forward for a lot of your businesses. Director Mahalik, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And again, sorry, we're running a little bit behind. We really do want to just share with you a little bit about some of the programs that we have available. We have these resources. We've been trying to get the word out about them. And we really think they're important. We want to make sure that you know about them. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on you know, some of kind of like the big picture stuff, because I really do think it's important for you to get this information. We may be making some tweaks to our programs because we want to try and expand the program eligibility. So I would say there are some things today that we're going to tell you about, but that could be changing. So keep an ear and an eye out to us here in the coming weeks. But we've got some baseline things for you to know about, and John's going to go through that here very quickly. But before he kind of dives into those programs, I want to just talk at a very high level about some important things that we're doing here at Development. You should know, if you don't already, that across the state of Ohio, we've got more than 20 small business development centers that can help with business planning, access to capital, and so much more. They've been working tirelessly across the state, you know, especially during the pandemic, but even before the pandemic, to really help a lot of our small businesses. These services are provided at no cost to you. In order to find the Small Business Development Center near you, you can visit sbdc.development.ohio.gov to learn more about their services and to find a location near you. We have a couple of very exciting new programs that are coming in the next week. the Ohio Micro Enterprise Loan Program that's going to provide some smaller loans at $10,000 to $45,000 at zero interest. These are different than the grant programs that John's going to talk to you about, but we're really excited about these loan programs for certified minority business or women-owned business enterprises, for working capital, for machinery and equipment, and for leasehold improvements and inventory. We've also got the brand new Women Business Enterprise Loan Program that provides loans up from $45,000 to $500,000 at below market interest rate, currently up to 3%. Businesses must be 51% women ownership or a certified women-owned business. Again, for machinery and equipment, leasehold improvements, renovations, or real estate purchases. We're excited about these two new loan programs that came to us out of this last budget. Very excited to launch them here in the next week or so. Development.ohio.gov to learn more about them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Workman. He's the chief of the Business Services Division. He's been at Development for a little over 7 years, I think now. He and his team have been working very hard to get these grant programs launched, coming out of the pandemic to really help businesses that have been impacted the most. We've got 4 of these grant programs. We've got plenty of money in these grant programs, and we've been trying to get the word out. That's really the purpose of this webinar today, is so that you know more about them. We want you to take a look at them, even if you think you may not be eligible. We want you to take a look. Again, we've got plenty of those dollars left over, and we've got to get them spent before the end of the year. So, John, I'm going to kick it to you here very quickly. Please take a look. We know that there are people out there that still need assistance, and we want to make sure that you know all about them. So, John, I'm kicking it to you, buddy.
Thank you very much, Director. I appreciate it.
You got it.
And I appreciate being here this morning. So as the Director said, we have over $300 million of grant funds that were provided to us by the Ohio legislature to get out to Ohio's businesses. And it's been made very clear these are grant funds. They're not required to be repaid. You get to keep the funds and use them and put them into your business and invest in your business. So we have 4 separate programs that we're going to talk about here today. And I'll kind of take them in order of size a bit. The first program is our biggest program. It's our food and beverage establishment program. So, that's one of the biggest industries that's been hit really hard as a result of the pandemic, obviously, especially in service, table service, that sort of thing. So $200 million of this pot has been reserved for food and beverage establishments. And what we're looking for is food service contractors, caterers, mobile food services, drinking places, full service and limited service restaurants, coffee shops, cafeterias, bakeries in your neighborhood, all kinds of things like that. They can be for-profit or nonprofit entities. It does not have to be a for-profit business. We do also provide grant funds to nonprofit businesses as well. One of the big qualifications that we're going to need to see from the business is that they suffered at least a 10% reduction in revenue between 2019 and 2020 as a result of COVID-19. So we collect information as part of the application to verify that, including some documentation from the applicant to show that loss. The business has to have at least one physical location in Ohio. That doesn't mean that they can't work out of their home. So bakers that work out of their home, caterers that work out of their home are still eligible for the program as long as they meet all other eligibility requirements. All applicants do have to provide a copy of a license, and there are 3 different types of licenses that are allowed: a vendor's license, a food service operation license, or a liquor permit. And one of the big reasons that we collect this license is that is independent third-party verification for us that this actually is a real business. It's operating in accordance with the guidelines that have been put forth, whether those be food guidelines, liquor service guidelines, vendor guidelines, whatever it is. It provides us some comfort that we're dealing with real businesses that are keeping up with their requirements in the state. They had to have been in operations since at least December 1st, 2019. Why that date? Because when we're going to do a revenue comparison to calculate your loss, we have to have a base period to measure against. And we determined that we needed at least 1 month in 2019 to be able to measure against to calculate the revenue reduction to determine if businesses are eligible for the program. There are some things that will make a business ineligible for the program. Obviously, we're not going to award funds to other governmental agencies or entities. Sexually oriented businesses, we do not provide grant funds to those types of businesses. Anything related by the State Casino Control Commission, or any business that is majority owned by someone who is younger than 18. We do not provide grant funds to those types of businesses. So like I said, the business has to prove at least 10% revenue reduction to be able to be eligible for the program. So how are we going to do that? We're going to collect your 2019 revenue information. We're going to collect your 2020 revenue information, and we're going to prorate that to a monthly basis. And then we're going to do a calculation to see if there has been a reduction. And if there has been at least a 10% reduction, then you're eligible for an award. We do have a system in place to be able to take care of those applicants who were not in business for all of 2019. The system takes that into account, asks you how many months you were in business, and then the calculation is changed based on that entry by the company. So what can you use the money for if you're awarded? You can use it for personal protective equipment. You can use it for anything you had to do to your business to try and help protect employees, customers, or clients from COVID-19. You can use it for mortgage or rent payments, utility payments, salaries, wages, compensation, business supplies, or equipment. So it's really open. You can use it to reimburse for costs already incurred or to cover costs that will be incurred in the future. What are some of the things you can't use the funds for? Tax obligations. We don't want to use grant funds for taxes, non-business purposes, obviously, political purposes, or costs incurred that the business will receive reimbursement from another source. So insurance proceeds, other grant or loan programs. Want to avoid double dipping and take advantage of multiple programs for the same costs. Doesn't mean you can't have funds for multiple programs, just need to make sure we have costs to be incurred separately for all of those programs. So like I said, as part of the application, we're basically going to collect a handful of documents from each applicant to verify eligibility. First, we're going to collect some documentation to verify the 2019 and 2020 revenue amounts that you tell us. So tax returns, financial statements, internal accounting records, all of those are acceptable. We want to ensure that the businesses that we're working with are still operating and still here in Ohio. So we collect something from them to show that they were in operations in the last 60 days. Payroll statements, utility bills, rent or mortgage statements, something like that to show that they are actually still operating at some point in the last 60-day period. And then finally, we need a copy of that license that we talked about, vendor's license, food service operation license, or a liquor permit. So jumping to the award piece, if a company is awarded, how do we determine what their award amount is? The language that was passed to improve these programs indicated there was up to $30,000. So what we have done is we have put a tiered award structure in place. So if your calculated loss is between 10 and 30%, we'll give you $10,000, 31 and 50%, $20,000. And if it's 51% or more, you get a $30,000 grant. So that is the maximum amount available under this program. We do review applications on a first come, first served basis. As the director indicated, we have plenty of funding available under all 4 programs that we'll talk about here today. Ready to continue to review applications for all 4 of these programs as we continue to work through this. The next program that I will talk about is the entertainment venue grant program. So for this program, $40 million, again, grants of up to $30,000 per business, can be for-profit or nonprofit. What are the types of businesses that we're looking for here? Again, indoor entertainment venues mostly that were impacted by COVID-19, but then also some outdoor entertainment venues that saw some of the same impacts. So theaters, indoor and outdoor music venues, comedy clubs, concert halls, museums, art centers, galleries, historical sites. Remember, nonprofits are eligible. So your local museums, historical sites, that sort of thing, if they collect revenues, ticket fees as part of people going there, they can be eligible. Zoos, amusement parks, family fun centers, golf courses, sports centers, bowling alleys. We've got a lot of bowling alleys that have applied. Obviously, they were hit pretty hard with the closures. They also have to prove at least a 10% reduction in sales and revenue, so very similar to the food and beverage grant program. They have to have at least 1 physical location in Ohio. On this one, since it is an entertainment venue program, we do really focus on that physical location in Ohio and make sure that it actually is a venue where people go for entertainment to verify eligibility for the program. They too have to provide a copy of a license, vendor's license, food service, or liquor permit, depending on what they have based on their business. And again, had to have been in operations since at least December 1st, 2019, so that we can do that revenue reduction calculation to determine the award amount. One note between these 2 programs, if the applicant earns more than 50% or more of its revenue from the sale of food or beverages, we want them to apply under the food and beverage grant. As opposed to the entertainment venue grant. So obviously you'll have movie theaters or concert venues that might get a significant portion of their revenue from food and beverage sales. If it's more than 50%, again, we'd like them to apply under the food and beverage grant program instead. Otherwise, everything for this program is very similar to the food and beverage grant program. The revenue reduction calculation is the same. the uses of funds is the same, the required attachments are exactly the same, and the award amount calculation is exactly the same. So entertainment venue grant program, food and beverage grant program, very, very similar, just slightly different targeted audience for those two programs. The next program I'll talk about, again, very targeted program here, is a lodging grant program. $50 million was allocated for this program for hotels, motels, bed and breakfast operations. And it has to be those operations that are licensed by the Ohio Department of Commerce. Again, can be for-profit or nonprofit, doesn't matter, but they have to be licensed with the Ohio Department of Commerce, and they have to provide a copy of that license to us. For this program, we change up the calculation a little bit. As opposed to doing a 10% revenue reduction, instead we look at occupancy reduction. So folks are providing records of their occupancy rates for 2019 and 2020. We're comparing those to see a 10% reduction. And then the reduction percentage, again, is what drives the award amount in the exact same tranches as was used for the prior two programs. They obviously have to have at least one physical lodging location in Ohio. This is easy for us to verify. We can obviously verify whether a hotel, motel, or bed and breakfast exists at the location. And again, very similar, had to have started operations at least December 1, 2019, so that we have a period to compare against. And then one thing I will note, for all three of these programs, we have no employment requirements whatsoever. None of these programs require you to have W-2 employees, 1099 employees, anything. Owner-operated facilities are eligible for these programs as long as you otherwise meet all other requirements of the program. So again, for this program, the calculation is a bit different because we're looking at occupancy reduction as opposed to revenue reduction. But again, it's just a percentage change formula between two different percentage rates from 2019 and 2020 to calculate the revenue reduction. The attachments here are a little bit different than they are from the food and beverage and the entertainment venue grant program, obviously. Instead of collecting revenue information, we collect information to verify the occupancy rates that they put into their application. And then the license is a bit different. Obviously, we're collecting the license from the Ohio Department of Commerce, showing that they're registered as a hotel motel, as opposed to collecting a food and beverage license. And then again, the grant amount, 10 to 30% reduction in occupancy, 10,000, 31 to 50%, 20,000, 51% or more, 30,000. Another note about the both occupancy and revenue reductions, we are rounding up. So 50.5% does get rounded up to a 51% and would result in a greater award. So trying to bump people up where we can, where it makes sense. The final program I'll talk about today, and then I'll talk a little bit about the application process and how that works, is the new small business grant program. So this program is significantly different from the other three programs. It's more akin to what we did at the end of last year with our small business relief grant program. So for this program, we are targeting businesses that started in calendar year 2020 here in Ohio, and that had W-2 employees by the end of the calendar year. We've been given $20 million from the administration for this program to issue grants in a flat amount of $10,000 for each grantee that qualifies. So there is not a sliding scale award amount for this program. It is $10,000 for every grantee that is determined to have submitted an eligible application. So again, they had to have started operations in Ohio between January 1st, 2020 and December 31st, 2020. And there's a couple of documents that we'll accept to prove that. And we'll talk about that here in a couple of minutes. They had to have had at least 2 and no more than 25 Ohio employees as of January 1st, 2021. And again, we'll collect some documentation to verify that. They have to have at least one physical location in Ohio, which again, could be a home office if they have employees that are working out of that location. That does qualify. And they had to at least attest to the fact that they have experienced a revenue loss or incurred unplanned costs as a result of COVID-19. Since again, these grants are meant to bring people up from the costs that they're incurring as a result of the pandemic. So there are a number of businesses that are not eligible for this program. Any business that previously received the small business relief grant at the end of last year would not be eligible for this program. Nonprofits are not eligible for this program. Publicly traded companies are ineligible. Any business that's engaged in political or lobbying activities, again, sexually oriented businesses, Casino Control Commission regulated businesses, or just basically the same exact type of restrictions that were in place for the other programs. You can use the funds for exactly the same thing that you use it on the other programs: salaries, wages, mortgage payments, utility payments, measures taken to protect folks from COVID-19. Any of those are eligible costs. Again, for this program, the award amount, flat $10,000 for everybody who is deemed eligible, so there's no sliding scale on the award amount. And just like all the other programs, we are reviewing these applications on a first come, first served basis. So let's talk a little bit about the application process. We tried to make this as easy as we possibly could for folks. We wanted it to be as streamlined as possible and to make sense. So The links to the application are available on businesshelp.ohio.gov. You can find a link to all 4 of the applications, but they all take you to the same place. We built the application so that all 4 of the programs are all available at the same place. You will need to register for an Ohio or an OHID if you do not already have one. Most businesses that file taxes in the state of Ohio use the Ohio Business Gateway, and if you do, then you already have an OHID, and you can use that OHID to access this application. You do not have to create a new one, but you'll access the application using your OHID. You will submit the name and tax ID number of the business, which could be a federal tax ID number or a social security number, depending on your type of business. We do only allow 1 application per social security number or federal identification number. So if you have multiple locations under 1 tax ID number, we do allow you to include those multiple locations on a single application. Although all of those locations do have to qualify individually and satisfy the requirements of the terms and conditions. So once you enter the application, you will choose which of the 4 programs you want to apply for, because you can only apply for 1 for each business. And then we will ask you just baseline information about the business. Who are you? Where are you? Collect your tax ID number, demographic information about the ownership. What type of business are you? When were you established? How much funding have you received from other pandemic relief programs, which has no impact whatsoever on your eligibility, but is just something that we collect for statistical purposes. And then we collect contact information. So we do everything for these programs via email. With most of my staff working still at home on a fairly regular basis, it's easiest for us to communicate with folks via email. We've really wanted to focus on customer service for these programs, so we've been keeping up as much as possible. And then for this program, the attachments are a little bit different. You have to prove for the small business of the new small business grant program that you were established sometime between January 1st, 2020 and December 31st, 2020. So Secretary of State registration, Bureau of Workers' Compensation, getting licensing from the Department of Taxation for sales tax, for vendor's license, commercial activities tax registration. There's a number of different ways that you can prove it, and staff is reviewing those applications to see that as we work through the process. So fill out the baseline information about who your business is, attach the required documentation depending on which of the 4 programs that you're working on, and then submit your application. We're reviewing applications as they come in. We are mostly caught up on all of the programs and all the applications that have come in. And again, we're really focusing on customer service this time around for this program. Unfortunately, at the end of last year, when we did the Small Business Relief Grant, we just didn't have enough time to put a robust customer service process in place for that program. And that's one of the things that we really wanted to improve on this time. So we have email addresses set up for each of the 4 programs individually, where we take questions on all the programs. We typically respond within 24 to 48 hours, if not quicker than that. We are caught up on all those email inboxes and responding to customers immediately. And like I said, we are almost caught up on outstanding applications. So anything submitted now would likely be reviewed within the next week, and you would get a response from our team. If your application does happen to be rejected, we are trying to provide as much information as possible to you as to why that rejection occurred, so that you can correct your application, resubmit it for consideration. You do have the option, if your application is rejected, to resubmit that same application once corrections are made to address whatever deficiencies have been identified by my staff. And then obviously, if you have any questions whatsoever about what my staff is telling you about your application or how to complete the application, we have them standing by on those email addresses, ready to respond.
Great, thanks, John. Well, it looks like people are maybe starting to ask some questions in the chat box. The first one's from Kendall. She's wanting to know if your PPP loan was forgiven, can you still file for the grant?
Absolutely, yep. The only restriction there would just be don't use those funds for the same thing that you're using the grant funds for. Pay for different costs with the 2 different funds, but otherwise that is perfectly fine.
And if anyone else has any questions, if you want to go ahead and just type your question into the chat box, we can go ahead and answer them as they come in. We'll just pause here for a moment and see if anyone else has any questions or any other things they'd like to talk about with you, John, before we close anything out. I want to make sure everyone gets their questions answered.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I must have just done such a good job explaining these programs that there are no questions, right?
Very
That's all
thorough.
right. It's happened a couple times. It's okay.
Since it takes a moment to type sometimes, I'll give everyone a little bit longer. I just want to make sure everyone is still on the call. So I just want to make sure people aren't all typing in the moment. We don't cut anyone off. Stuff like this, questions can be important. So I'm gonna make sure we get to any of those. Okay. 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 Okay, here's another one from Samantha. I'm a grant writer for a small nonprofit university, and we have a building on our campus that is used as a conference center. We host local groups as well as state conferences. Would this kind of situation be eligible for the entertainment venue grant?
Yes, we just ask that you break that out separately from, like all other revenue sources of the institution, right? So when you submit your application, don't report everything for the entire group. Just focus specifically on that piece that we would call the entertainment venue piece, and we can absolutely accommodate that.
Okay. Great. Give it another few seconds and we'll go ahead and close out. Let's see, Thomas. Are there any plans to reopen the small business relief grant?
Not that I am aware of right now. It was a different source of funding, so we'd have to look into that. But again, at this point, we're looking at all options as to how we can help the small business community across Ohio. So we'll definitely take that back. Thank you for the feedback.
Okay. Well, it looks like that might be it.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for taking part, including the director and John. And again, sorry for the late start. This was literally my first Zoom on the administrative end. So I apologize to everybody involved. I'm a new staffer and it's my fault. So I've been on 100 Zooms on the other side of it, but I've never run one before. So I appreciate everyone's patience. So
No worries. We made it work.
Yeah.
All is well.
okay, well, bye everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking
Thank
part.
you.
All right. Be good. Bye-bye.
Bye.